And moving on, there was a victory today for Ukraine, but not on the battlefield, rather inside Israel's Supreme Court against Interior Minister Ayelet Shaked. The court ruled against Shaked, setting the quota of non-Jewish refugees allowed into Israel at 5,000. Shaked had argued that Israel compared favorably with other Western countries in absorbing Ukrainians, but by including in that number, there's some 20,000 already here prior to the war's outbreak. But the court rejected that claim and pointed out many of the Ukrainians who entered Israel as refugees have already returned home. Among those hailing the court's decision was Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who tweeted, quote, "I commend the decision of the Supreme Court of the State of Israel, which obliges the government of Israel to abolish any additional restrictions on the entry of citizens of Ukraine. The rule of law and respect for human rights is exactly what distinguishes a true developed democracy." Well, joining us in studio is advocate Tomer Warsha, the owner and director of the Tomer Warsha law firm, and in fact the attorney who successfully argued this very case in Israel's Supreme Court. Tomer, thank you for joining us. Congratulations, I guess, in order. I should say, correct, your case had the support, the moral support of the Ukrainian embassy in Israel, but they did not commission you for this.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, we petitioned the appeal to the High Court based on what we saw, that the decision of Minister Shaked was against the law, a violation of the rules, how to make this kind of decision.
Let's explore that, because the court found issue with how it was applied, and that Ayelet Shaked basically, even though the Interior Ministry has the right to set certain limitations, she had exceeded her authority in this case.
Exactly. Of course, we were in touch with the Ukrainian embassy, and we saw what happened. And when we checked the facts and we checked the legal status, we saw that indeed she violated the rules. Now, this is a democracy, and it doesn't matter whether you're right wing or left wing. You want your ministers to work legally. So when we filed this petition, it was a very simple one. We didn't go into any politics. We just said that she violated the rules.
How did she do that specifically?
First of all, there is an agreement between the governments, between government of Israel and the government of Ukraine, and this agreement was supported by the Israeli government by a government decision. Apart from this, there is a special order in Israel that put all the countries that are exempted from visa to Israel. Ukraine was one of that.
Right.
And in order to take her out of this order, Minister Shaked had to consult the Interior Committee at the Knesset, which she didn't. She just decided out of the blue to take them out. And of course, it could not happen. We saw that she had different motives for this kind of move, and we had to appeal to the court.
So where does that leave Israel's Ukraine policy now, refugee policy now?
The court ruled that the exemption of visas for up to 3 months is valid. The decision of Shaked is cancelled immediately. It means that from now on, all Ukrainians can just buy a ticket and come to Israel like all the other country members that
on
are
a
exempted.
3-month tourist.
Exactly. Now, after that, Minister Shaked has the power to take any decision about their policy. Now, what she did so far, she extended the tourist visa on one hand, but she didn't allow them to file for refugee on the other end. She allowed them to work, but she didn't give them any working visas. She tried to go, between the lines, but it cannot stand. You need, as a country, as a state, to choose a decent policy about it. We just need to wait and see what will happen next.
Well, I'm going to read her response, because just in the last hour, Minister Shaked has responded in English translation. The policy regarding the entry of tourists from Ukraine has proven to be a success. This is Ayelet Shaked. Unfortunately, the High Court ruled with exceptional activism that the policy would be stopped if it was not discussed in the Knesset. Today, I appeal to the Interior Committee to hold a hearing on the entry order regarding Ukrainians. Your response, first of all, to that?
This was no activism. On the contrary, this was very conservative from the High Court, just to say that Minister Shaked has to work by the law. This is one thing. Number two, I doubt if she can pass such a move, because even after her decision, we saw many Knesset members which were against it. I doubt if she can make it happen, but if she works legally and do everything correct and get the support of the Knesset to this kind of move, we will have to see and check what are our options.
Right. I'm going to play sort of devil's advocate in her policy. Why she took that policy is some have expressed concern that the visa policy under the present circumstances will be abused by some Ukrainians who want to come here, apply for refugee status, not necessarily those that are even in danger or in direct military, but simply in order to then use Israel as a vehicle for maybe as a transit point for somewhere else. I mean, what your response to that argument?
There is a huge difference between just stating arguments without any factual ground than showing the facts as they are. And what we did at the Supreme Court, and you must understand, this is a huge victory because it's not simple to make the High Court cancel a decision of the minister, but they did it because they saw the facts that we put in front of them, which showed, number one, there was no increase in the amount of people entering Israel after the war. Number two, there is a very small amount of people staying illegally from Ukraine. And number three, many Ukrainians want to leave the country and go back to Ukraine. And we saw it happens as it is right now. And it doesn't affect any aliyah from Ukraine because it's two different groups. So whatever she argued didn't have any ground. We proved it, and this is why we won.
Now, you won the case on the procedure that Ayelet Shaked followed in the Israeli government. She now says she's going to follow it. Is there any recourse if indeed she could get for example, the Knesset Interior Minister to prove it? There are those who argue Israel's policy, if it limited refugees, would be a violation of international law regarding welcoming refugees. Would that have any play, any grounds for appeal to the High Court?
We have a lot of moves that we can do and a lot of arguments, but we need to take things at the time. As it was before, we saw a decision, we chose the right arguments against it, the strongest ones, and we won. Now, if something else happens, we'll just have to review it and see whether indeed we have grounds to go again to the High Court.
Have you had, your firm, any response from either the Ukrainian government or, I'm stressing again, they did not pay for your kids. It was, I guess, a pro bono situation, but have you had any contact from either the Ukrainian embassy in Israel or the Ukrainian government?
My firm does this work, immigration work, for more than 20 years. We're used to filing principal petitions against violations that we see. We won many cases, and even here, the ambassador, of course, thanked us for the work that we did. I saw that the Prime Minister himself, President Zelensky. So, of course, I'm grateful, and I was just hoping to be able to contribute from my knowledge to the suffering of the Ukrainian people, and I'm glad that we succeeded.
All right, lawyer Tomer Warsha, we may not have seen the end of you arguing this case or a related case in the Supreme Court, but on this day, you do emerge victorious, and one of the thanks, at least certainly of the Ukrainian government. Thank you for joining us on I-24 News.